One of the challenges that I experience and just experienced again today is the phenomena of finding a doorway, finding a technology that facilitates expansion, flow, growth, alchemy. That there's a sense, this is it. This is it. And as soon as I discover that this is it, whatever it is, therapy, writing, a particular meditation, etc., I of course want to do more, because that state of flow, that space of growth, promises a better future. And so I focus in on that area. Now, what always happens is that there's an initial spurt I would look at as kind of like a high growth curve. And then the more I do it, the more it goes like this. And so I wanted to talk about why that may be, because you may or may not find the same thing, that, whether it's a new relationship, a new car, a new job, a new therapist, a new channel on YouTube, that whatever it is, it has a high initial curve. Of course, if you're drawn to it, if it's fulfilling, but then it tapers off. And if you keep pushing it, eventually it even can go backwards. Like, it's not just that you get to a certain plateau of enjoyment or value, but that it actually starts to go down. And the first way that, I guess the driver of that phenomena is, I want to feel better, I want to grow, I want to be in that state, right? So that's the first thing. And the second thing is the overwhelming complexity of life. I mean, if I look at my life and, the possibility field, well, there's, always things that can be improved with diet. There's an endless amount of exercise that can be done. There's an endless amount of relationship pursuits that can be explored. There's channeled information. There's intuitive information. There's studying up on science and learning new things. There's buying new things that could be enjoyable or useful. There's going on experiences. There's improving on work. There's investing and figuring out how to make more money. There's millions of books to read. There's millions of audiobooks to listen to. There's millions of YouTube videos. There's new blockbusters, movies to go watch. There's junk food to really enjoy. There's fasting. There's psychedelics. There's pampering. There's pushing oneself. There's going on a trip. There's just so many things that one can do. There's taking a deep rest. There's working on my goals. So there are so many things, and I find that to be overwhelming, meaning deciding what to do in all of those areas all of the time feels like it's too much. And so that sense of too much, right, creates a drive. Like, I'd like it to be simpler. I'd like it to be just do this one thing. Because that's not hard to remember. That's not hard to do, to just do one thing, to find the one thing that's really going to make the difference. And just do that one thing. In fact, there's a wonderful book called The One Thing. The most important thing is to do the most important thing. And it's so nice to have the idea that, life could be really simple and you just do this one thing. And so that's what tends to happen, I think, is I will find, and I will find one thing, and I pick it because I'm doing a variety of different things, and then I try something, and then it has this wonderful result. It's incredible. So then naturally I will do more of it, right? And then I will say, okay, great, I'm on track. This was a good choice. I'm going to do more of this. But by about that time, it starts to taper off. But it's still easy to do. Just do this one thing. I'll make it part of my routine. And then it's tapering off some more. And now it's providing little or no value. Maybe even because it's become normalized, etc., maybe I'm even going backwards, right? It's not only not giving me more, I'm getting less, and I probably would be enjoying or growing more doing something else. But if I do something else, I've got to examine this whole circle here. All the many complexities, but if I just keep doing this, then it's simple. Maybe it'll come around again, right? And go up again. So I think that's the driver, that just the desire to simplify an incredibly complex system is a force that pushes me towards doing more of what seems to initially be working. Now, I also want to explore why does this tapering off occur? Why is often the first 3 therapy appointments with someone the most growth-filled? Or why is the first month of a relationship the most growth-filled? And why can't doing one thing for a very long period of time, why can't that work as well as having a more complex dynamic? And the first thing is hedonic adaptation. So I remember when I was in the Philippines and I tasted my first espresso. They had dried mango, and in the hotel room there was an espresso maker. I'd never had a hotel room with an espresso maker before, and I'd never drunk espresso from this little machine. It had been years since I had drunk espresso in Napoli, in Italy, and I'd never tasted it with mango, and this was the most incredible experience. Espresso, dried mango in my hotel room, press a button. It was absolutely fantastic. So this, being a noticeable peak experience of my room, I bought the exact same espresso maker, little thing when I got home, and sampled the organic espresso pods that would go in, and it was pretty nice at home, but it wasn't as good as it was at the hotel. Now, years later, this barely registers in my day. Right? I could go out right now, press the button, have an espresso with some dried mango, and feel absolutely nothing. In fact, it's gone negative, meaning I think I'm having a bit too much caffeine. That's one thought. Two, the dried mango is not too good on the teeth. There's always little bits of sticky bits. I'd probably better not do that, right? So that's where it is right now. It was the most amazing thing, then pretty neat, then pleasant, and now it's probably too much caffeine and too much dried sugar, on my teeth, and not a good way to start the morning, right? Sugar, you want some protein and stuff. So it's a net negative. The most amazing thing is now a net negative. And so, it's no espresso this morning, no dried mango, and I'm doing something else, right? So that's hedonic adaptation. What was new was amazing. Now, the other thing that I think comes in here, because I just experienced this with doing an inner dialogue process around a whole area of, complex areas of my life where I developed this technology of inner dialogue, kind of doing a constellation session or constellation therapy, which ties in with IFS kind of modes of thinking. And it was absolutely incredible what happened the first time I did this technique. And then it was, deeply life-changing. So I did it the second day, right? Deeply life-changing. So I did it the third day, and somewhat life-changing. And I just tried it again this morning, and it seems distracting from my peaceful morning. So what's going on? Well, one of the things that I think can make sense of this pattern, aside from hedonic adaptation, is that imagine you have a house, right? We have a house, right? Our life, our ego, our identity, we have a house. And it has a variety of complex sides. A house has windows, a house has gutters, a house has a roof, a house has a living room, it has a kitchen, it has a bedroom. And over time, over years, the windows get dirty, and they get dirtier and dirtier over time. The gutters slowly fill up with little bits of silt in the air or leaves from a storm. Dust accumulates in the room, dishes accumulate in the kitchen. And so we move into a sparkling new house. It's alive, as an infant. It's all these new rooms. There's a sense of wonder. But as the decades go by, certain rooms we just never go into, and they just get dirtier and dustier. The windows get, slowly darker. And then one day you come up with this technique. I'm going to hire a window cleaner. And the window cleaner comes in. It's amazing, right? The windows have never looked so good in decades, right? So this is an incredible improvement. You hire a window cleaner. So you hire the window cleaner back again, right? The one thing worked well, cleaning the windows, is a great improvement, so you hire the window cleaner back again. But they were just there, and maybe they get a little better, right? They didn't have quite enough time, so they clean a few more windows they didn't fully get to, or they clean on the inside, they only clean the outside after, and it's better again, right? So this is it. We've just got to have window cleaning. And so hire the window cleaner out again, but no effect, right? They were just there a few days ago. It hasn't gotten dirty again. And meanwhile, the dust in the, back library is still there. right? The dust is still there, the window. So you say, it's not working anymore. Maybe I was wrong about window cleaning. So you hire a vacuumer, right? And my goodness, they vacuum one room up. It's incredible. It's pristine. You go in and vacuum that room some more, not so much. It's already clean. You go into another area and vacuum that, and it's beneficial. And it's like, okay, I found it. Vacuuming, that's the thing. You vacuum the whole house, this and that and the other. All the floors are absolutely wonderful. And then you go in and vacuum them again, and the vacuum cleaner is a bit noisy. Extension cord, is in the way, and it's not doing anything better, right? And so I thought vacuuming was the thing, right? So then you clean the gutters, and then the drainage works, and it's wonderful, and everyone should clean their gutters. Right? So I think life is a bit like that, that anything that you don't do, right? A liver cleanse that you've never done. It's an amazing thing. And so you cleanse your liver again, and cleanse your liver again, and cleanse your liver again. And, it's cleansed, right? The first cleanse was was the biggest issue. Or you've never read a book and you read 3 or 4 books, and it's amazing, right? And you read a few hundred books, and you read a few hundred more, right? And not as profound as maybe the first 50. So it's, or you go on to Netflix and you pick the best shows for you, at that time, and you watch them, and they're incredible. And so we have to do this all the time. But you've already watched the best shows, and also it's become familiar, hedonic adaptation. And now you're sitting around in the couch too much, right? Because that's how you watch Netflix. And so and then pretty soon you're watching mediocre shows just to try and get some of that high of that first amazing thing, because you've watched the best movies of all time. Once you've seen Lord of the Rings, and some of these epic things that it's so beautiful. Yeah, but things that carefully and beautifully done that take, $400 million to produce, they only come along maybe once every 5 to 7 years, right? And you're done in 6 hours, right? Or you've traveled to the most amazing place, and now it's, just going back there. And so as challenging as it is to navigate the complexity of all these different things, I think that life is a circle, life is a cycle, and that, while there's no easy system to fit all of this into a daily routine, and it's challenging to organize it into a yearly routine, and to know when to put what and how much. And, what if you go for your trip and they're doing construction on the skyscraper next door, and I would have been better off at home. There's also no sense of omniscience or pure vision. It's a matter of being willing to be wrong a lot of the time. But what I find is that life invites me to try something that works really well and then put it down, and then do something else that I haven't done in a while or that I've never done, and have the most amazing experience. Psychedelics, it's incredible, right? And then put it down, right? And perhaps a year, 2, 3 years later, again, microdosing this. Put it down, right? Jogging, I've got to, do this and get fit and do this, and put it down, right? And then do something else. Do something else in a way that covers the entirety, so that you clean the windows and then no more window cleaning. You clean the gutters and leave it for a year. You vacuum things and leave it for a couple of months before you do a deep cleaning everywhere, right? You do the dishes and they're done for the day. And perhaps one of the more, challenging art forms is discovering and mastering the discipline of doing some things daily, some things monthly, some things yearly, some things every 5 years, and some things, a few times in a lifetime. And having a sense of what those are, learning from other people who are living in their own state of grace. For example, for me, I never get tired of fresh flowers. And so, 3 or 4 times a week, it's like, a bouquet of flowers, right? One for this room, one for this table, etc. And just to enjoy the flowers, right, is more satisfying than a new car. And that seems to be a, several times a week thing. Meditating daily, right? To meditate in the morning and meditate in the evening. Going for a walk, that's a daily thing. But this thing, and I think part of the challenge is when you put something down, knowing when to come back to it. And when do you put that on your calendar, so to speak? Because in my experience, there are things that I put down that I don't come back to soon enough. And then there are other things that I don't think about because I'm focusing on my little, narrow scope at the moment. And I've forgotten about because life is just so complex. Take care. Hello, I'm Dane Rose, and I want to begin by highlighting one of the most shocking things that I've discovered at age 47, which is that no one has, and perhaps no one ever will, introduce me to life. No one's ever sat me down at any point and said, this is how life works, this is why it works. These are the most important aspects of life. And I find that incredible. Now, when that thought occurred to me, that 700 books in, that hundreds of courses in, that decades of introspection and learning into this life, I still didn't have a formal introduction to what this is all about, right? It seems absurd, right? So there's a moment of criticism. Why hasn't anyone pointed these things out, right? And it's fun. The adolescent's job is to criticize the inevitable and innate imperfections of everything, including the cultural blind spots that see so many of us going through life without knowing what's going on. But it's the adult's job to do something about it, right? The world is not perfect. The world is not fair. And if something bothers us, what to do about it? And this book, An Introduction to Life, is my response to that critique, my response to that irritation, that imperfection in my life. And although there are well over 100 chapters, it's the biggest book, naturally. It's a big topic that I've ever written. I thought I'd just randomly pick a few of the chapters and, to get a little bit of a sense of what's involved. So on the first thing we've got the big picture, evolution. We've got the 4 operating systems of the brain, the 4 brains, and the protocols they use to filter information and make decisions. The sociopathic or reptilian brain, the rational or pattern organizing brain, the empathic brain and its decision-making protocol, and the transcendent brain, right? Now, that's one of the most revolutionary understandings that I've come across that nobody introduced me to. If we go on to 3 random pictures or windows into the book on the next page of the contents, we've got the ego, self, and breathing. We've got chauvinism and its cultural underpinnings. We've got optimal roles. We've got PTSD, a stunning thing that I didn't learn about until I was 40 years old, that has more than a 30% invisible influence on every person and on the culture as a whole. The culture and its cult-like nature, how it can be our enemy, how it can be our friend, what its role is. We have cult and ego architecture, just going into that a little bit more deeply. The next page of, another 50 chapters, we've got key cycles in life, things that you want to be aware that repeat themselves over and over again, that have throughout history, the history of humanity, and will continue to repeat themselves. What are those key cycles and how do we attune to those? Emotional literacy, right? What is an emotion? How is it different from a feeling? Now, in a psychologically illiterate culture, we don't know the difference between an emotion and a feeling, as evidenced by the fact that you, as a representation of the 99%, cannot articulate it clearly. And if you do, your articulation will not agree with the next person. Feelings and emotions, right? Positive and negative emotions. Are they the same as good and bad? Like all of this, any one of these things takes years to understand with wisdom and depth, right? But in most cases, we don't even know that we don't know about it. Grounded to reptile, right? Why we regress to the reptilian brain in traumatic states, right? Why our tether is the oldest brain. Purpose and meaning, how do we organize it? What is meaningful and what is not meaningful? Do you know the core ingredient in meaning? How to increase a life of meaning, how to decrease a life in meaning, right? Every question is a quest, and what are the quests that you're on? That's another page. 2 more tables of content pages. The deepest cuts to our humanity, right? We all live in a cult, in a culture, with a norm, a normal pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. And how do those norms undermine the human operating, which is the empathic operating system in our brain? Understanding the math of cultural impact, investing in our future, individually and globally. Losing oneself. What does it mean when we say we lose ourself? What is that self, right? And when is it good to lose ourselves and find a new pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being? And when is it a disaster? When is it a crisis to lose ourselves and perhaps regress to an older pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, being? We have advice, criticism, and direction. Some tips, right, in life. Get excellent at something. The circle in life, right? Why is the circle the most fundamental shape in geometry, in the liminal space between masculine and feminine, between duality and the one? Right? Learn from nature, right? When wrong ideas are right, right? When does a wrong idea take us in the right direction for our sustainable well-being? It's not true, but it takes us to a better place. And in those instances, do you cling to what's true, or do you value the improvement that comes to your life? So a very light dive into the table of contents. But my belief, from thousands of conversations, hundreds of books, talking with various teachers, etc., my belief is that if you are exceptional, right, if you are an architect of ideas, if you understand the building blocks of consciousness and ideas and the way they create the illusion of our reality, that you can read a book like this and spark 12 or more % of new gestalts, of new configurations, right, of your consciousness, of your frameworks. You can iterate, you can evolve. If you're a naive teenager, as I was, 90% of this is useful grist for the mill, new populations of consciousness, of ideas, right? If you're an average middle-aged person, as I am, 30% of this, if you'll skim the chapters and highlight, ooh, there might be something there for me, there might be something there here, there might be something there, and then come back and actually read those chapters that speak to you, or use it as an I Ching and open up to something. That there is going to be things that you didn't know that are useful, that can propel you to a better quality of life. And that's what makes a book an act of love, right? It's an act of creativity. But love, is a process. You have the love of need. I need you, the infant. Right? You have the love of desire. I want you, the adolescent. But then you have the love of giving. First to ourselves, adult love, and then to others, right? I'm still learning. This book was a gift for me. Someone introduced me to life through this book, right? And 30% of the ideas catalyzed have had a positive impact in the course of articulating and writing, etc. But they may also be fruitful for you. That's the gift of the information age of technology. It's not either or. Right? Once I wrote the book for me, I can print more copies for you without diluting. Right? It's a gift to me to talk with someone who's read this book as opposed to someone who hasn't. Right? So, loving enough to care, caring enough to take time taking enough time to see, seeing enough to understand what is being seen, understanding enough to empathize, to transcend the rational brain into the human realm of empathy, understanding enough to empathize, and empathizing with understanding enough to attune, and attuning successfully enough to succeed at facilitating survival, security of survival, a sense of love and belonging, self-esteem, the articulation of ideals and the paths that take us towards those ideals, called principles or best practices. And the respect we earn by following the best practices that create the world that we state that we want, right? Earned love, self-esteem. By developing our gifts, discovering what they are. I'm good at math. I'm good at listening in a way that people say things they've never said before. Discovering my gifts. And then bringing those gifts deeper and deeper into the world in a way that creates abundance for myself, for others, that creates value. And finally, serving something, becoming a part of something bigger than ourselves. That's adult love, and it's a process of blossoming, right? And if a book facilitates self-awareness, understanding, empathy, facilitates action that leads to increased survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, discovery and development of our talents and gifts, bringing those into the world, and becoming part of something bigger. If it does that, we have succeeded at bringing a profound state of love, a transformative state, a useful state of love, an adult state of love into the world.